And a good afternoon to you. Chief Meteorologist Tim Buckley live in the News 2 studio here, tracking for you our weather impact alert day. You might have heard earlier that we're watching for the possibility of not just one or two, but really several storms that could be moving through our area. Now, we're not quite there yet. It's not doing all that much outside our windows at this point, but this is kind of your heads up, something we're looking forward to later on this afternoon, but especially this evening. I really think it'll be the evening hours tonight after dinner time where you're going to find several showers and thunderstorms kind of moving about the area. And this could linger all the way through about midnight tonight. So here's the lay of the land, and then we'll dive into some storm tracking for you with the few that are out there. 3 o'clock to midnight or so is when we're watching this. Main threats would be widespread thunderstorms, and I'm really more concerned about flooding than I am about things like gusty winds, hail, certainly not tornadoes. Those type of things aren't going to happen today, but it's that flood risk and maybe a damaging wind gust or two that would be our main concern. So what do you need to do if you're out and about throughout the day? Make sure you have that News 2 app very, very close by and just kind of keep checking it. Don't look at it once and then forget about it, because what's really the value there is using that interactive radar on the go, because that's when you can see those showers and storms kind of popping up. You can hit the play button and see if they're moving away from you or towards you, and then you can adjust. Remember, on a day like today, we get a lot of clues from the sky. Look at the clouds. Always watch them when they're forming. Of course, when they're getting a bit darker, that can be a clue that bad weather is starting to approach. Obviously, if you hear thunder, that's your big clue to get inside. But also something that I notice on summertime days is when you start to see the clouds get really, really tall. Not finding too much of that here on our high point view, but if you were to see some that get super tall and kind of resemble those big thunderhead clouds, that can be a sign that rain is not too far behind and that you probably are going to have some storms sooner rather than later. Here's a live view at Burlington. We are starting to see some vertical development with some of those clouds, which does tell us thunderstorms will be on the way later on. It's also very hot and humid, as we've been used to over the last couple of weeks, right? It's 89 degrees. Dew point is 70, which means it does feel like 97 right now in Burlington. Winston-Salem, pretty quiet summer afternoon so far. And again, we're not expecting all that much all that quickly. It's mostly going to be this afternoon and really the evening hours that we're watching a bit more carefully. So let's look at the radar right now. Where is anything popping and where are we still waiting? Well, most of the Triad currently is pretty dry. You notice the radar loop. This is just over the last 3 hours or so. We have had a couple rogue downpours kind of popping up in Alamance, Guilford, Randolph, and Davidson counties. More action out to the west. And on days like today, typically what we see first off is that the mountains and the foothills, they get their action going a little bit more quickly than we do here at home in the Triad. And there are reasons for that. Those mountains can spark the storms on days like today. And this day in particular, this is all happening ahead of a cold front. So we are expecting the west to get some action first and then for it to move a little bit closer to the east. So let's just kind of casually track some of these showers and storms that are out and about in our area right now. So I'm going to use my computer here as we're kind of manipulating the radar. So we'll start off in Guilford County. Right now you don't have to worry about too much of anything. City of Greensboro, anywhere within the urban loop is dry at the moment, but we are getting a couple of clues that a couple showers are starting to form. Not really gaining much traction, but you have a little bit of a sprinkle here near the farmers market in Colfax. You got one in High Point, another one over here, kind of approaching the Grandover area of Guilford. So where our action a little bit busier, Alamance County has been seeing some more of this than previous days. So this is on the northern tier of Alamance. You take 119 up from Mebane. You end up here crossing Highway 49. That's that heavier shower right there on the border of Caswell County and Alamance right now. There's some pretty heavy rain with this. It's not all that big, but pretty close to Anderson. You do have a bit of a downpour right about here. They are moving from southwest to northeast today. Nothing severe about this. This would just be rainfall, and that would be about it that you'd have to worry about. But it'll get you drenched for sure. Another shower and storm just a little bit north of there in Caswell County. This is in the town of High Towers, right along Highway 119 again. Very heavy rainfall, and something we can do on summertime days is kind of take a snapshot at these and look at them in a 3D way. So what we're going to do is use our radar to kind of visually explain this here. Notice this is a pretty small storm right now, but it's already grown about 20,000 feet so far today. There is heavy rain in there. I'm not finding any indication of hail Usually, if we were to have any hail in a storm like that, you'd find some purples or fuchsias within the shower and storm. Not really seeing that at this time. Up in the Surrey County area, Mount Airy, you're getting some action. So let's take a look at our foothill communities. I'm going to zoom in over here closer to Dobson and Mount Airy too. This is actually by far the most rain in our area at this hour. And one of the problems we could run into today is that you get thunderstorms that move pretty slowly, and also you could get storms that form and hit the same areas that have already been hit once before throughout the day. So let's say this is round 1 for you in Surrey County. I could see later on this afternoon and evening, you get another round and then another round. And so on top of that, maybe you're adding 1 to 2 inches of rain on top of 1 to 2 inches of rain, and before you know it, you have a bit of a flood situation. Most of us won't have that happen, but some people could, and that's why we're a bit concerned when it comes to flooding on a day like today. That rainfall does extend northward across the Virginia border right now, and it's kind of moving its way right there. That's pretty close to Stone Mountain State Park, if you're familiar with it, right by Elkin, Highway 21, Trap Hill, right about there. That's the end of that. Farther off we go into the mountains. This is Boone. Blowing Rock too. They've got themselves a big downpour at the moment. They've had some pretty bad weather, to say the least, the last couple of weeks up in Blowing Rock, and they're getting it again. What I don't like to see here is that this isn't moving all that much. So these showers and storms that can kind of park themselves or sit and put down rainfall, that's when you can get into some trouble. And that looks to be what they're dealing with right now. Boone, Blowing Rock, very heavy rain. We are seeing some thunder and lightning with this action up there. We do have a couple cameras in that region. Let me see if I can load a couple up right now as we are casually storm tracking with you on this Tuesday afternoon. And again, we're going to be watching this really as we go through the midnight hour. So I'll step out of the way. You can kind of watch our friends up in Boone move their way about King Street. Umbrellas will help, but they don't do the whole trick. They're going to get pretty wet up there, it looks like. That's right there in downtown, if you're familiar with it. As this camera kind of pans around and zooms around, you'll see how this rain has been coming down pretty heavily up in the Boone area. And that's going to be the way it lingers because, like I just showed you, it's not really moving all that much. So that's our weather impact up there in the high country right now. None of those storms are severe. There is at least a low risk of a severe shower or thunderstorm as we go throughout the afternoon. Here's downtown Blowing Rock. Heavier rain there. We just showed it to you on radar. Man, it looks nice though with all those flowers and everything in the town park, looking sharp. But there's the rain. You need some of that to keep those flowers growing, I guess. Illuminated in there a little bit. Maybe there's some sunshine poking through the clouds, but you can see those raindrops very heavily coming down in downtown Blowing Rock. Good time to maybe step inside and get one of them good ice cream cones at Kilwins, or maybe a pint down at the Sixpence. That's a good spot to go as well. Either way, a lot of rain falling in Blowing Rock. So that's what's going on up in the high country. The main weather maker for this, what's going on kind of behind these showers and storms today, it is a bit of a cold front. So let me show you where that is right now. If we look at the regional radar and kind of track this across the southeastern U.S., I'm going to zoom out and you can kind of see the back edge of this. So right now we're on the front edge. It's just beginning around here, but pretty clearly Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio. Look at that. We have a big dividing line between drier air on the backside and scattered showers and storms on the front end of this. Now, there's not a big severe weather threat. I know we have an alert day here, but there's not a big threat of severe storms today. And so I don't expect all that many thunderstorm warnings, but what we could have is some of that water collecting that creates the flood problem, similar to what we saw last week. You might remember 29 got flooded out a little bit. That could be something that happens to somebody today. Hard to say exactly who. But anyway, that's the cold front that's kind of plowing a little bit closer to us, and there are some risks associated with that. So let's show you the severe weather risk for today. When we pop this up for you, anytime we're looking at it, it's showing you the likelihood or the possibility of any strong to severe thunderstorms. And when we say severe thunderstorms, that means storms that could put down damaging winds or hail. Those are the definitions of one of those storms. So right now, from New York City to DC, all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Look at that. It extends all the way down to Biloxi, Mississippi, I guess, and even into parts of Arkansas. That's the level 1, that green risk zone. Now, there is a level 2 risk out of this, but that's for the big cities of the Northeast, from New York to Philly to Baltimore and DC. For us, we are on that lower end of the storm risk for today. Just a level 1, which means it's possible you could get a severe thunderstorm, but not all that likely. Most of us will not have storm damage from today. What I am noticing though is that if you do have a stronger storm, it would mostly just be for damaging wind gusts. That's the low category for today, is that any storm that pops up and gets kind of big, we'd have to watch for maybe a couple trees falling down as a result. We've seen plenty of that in the last week, and we've had scattered thunderstorms, scattered downpours, scattered power outages as a result. There is no risk of severe hail for today. That's good news. We also have no risk for tornadoes. This is not a tornado threat. And by the way, in the summertime, June, July, August, it's very rare that we would have any sort of tornado threat. Moreover, it's usually just for wind and for flooding. Now, this is what prompted our alert for today. You can see this big yellow shaded category across Virginia, North and South Carolina. It includes Charlotte, it includes the Triad, and certainly includes the mountains too. This is the risk of flash flooding. So why would we be worried about that and not so much the damaging winds? Well, there's a reason. And like I said, any of these showers and storms that are forming today, they could be slow moving, number one, like we've already started to see up in the mountains. And number two, you could get a couple of different rounds. So let me load up our Futurecast and we can kind of watch this together. So this is going to be the Futurecast for the next couple of hours, kind of as we go through the afternoon and into the evening. So we're going to be watching all the way through about midnight. But here's where we are right now. Not much going on currently. This is around 2 o'clock. That seems to be holding true. Our Futurecast keeps things pretty quiet all the way through about 6 to 7 o'clock. But after that, you can see it does get a bit busier. Showers and storms kind of populating the map a little bit more after dinner time. That's when we got to start watching a bit more carefully. And that could be pretty busy for you between 8, 9, 10 o'clock. You see what happens? You get round 1 to move through, and then back here, round 2, round 3, that's when you can start to develop some flooding problems. And that might linger through about midnight. So really, we're watching more carefully between about 8 and even through around 1 to 2 a.m. for tonight. That's for that flood risk. Now, rain, thunder, that could continue all the way through early Wednesday morning. And then throughout the day tomorrow, a couple thunderstorms are possible, but not as much of a concern. Always good to get multiple opinions anywhere in life, and same thing for the weather. Let's take a look at our other models that we can show you. This would be about 7 o'clock this evening. Here's 8 and 9 o'clock. This one not popping quite as many storms, and it actually puts them out a little bit later than our model does. So something to watch as we go throughout the rest of this evening. That time frame might continue to shift a little bit later, and a little bit slower. Once we get that cold front through here, we will have some drier weather that starts to settle in for tomorrow, but especially for Thursday. In fact, once we get to Thursday, how about morning temperatures in the upper 60s, afternoon highs in the upper 80s, no threat for rain. That's going to be some good weather once we get to Thursday and the 4th of July holiday, but it will take a little while before we can kind of arrive at that point. As far as humidity, oh, it's so humid right now, right? It's been that way for a little while. Let me show you what we're expecting. This graphic is actually still loading. We're still getting the new model data, so I've got to actually fix that up before we get to it later on tonight. Before I let you go, let me go back to the beginning here and we'll kind of show you anything that's been changing on your live local radar. So here's what we see right now popping up across our area. And the funny thing about storm days like this is that they really truly do change just about every 5 to 10 minutes. So right now we're seeing a little bit more starting to pop up in places like Davidson County. So let's zoom in across the area. Since we last looked at Guilford County, we have a new little downpour popping up right about here. This is not too far from Julian or Climax, areas like that. Basically right around Alamance Church Road and Highway 62. There's a big downpour right in between, kind of in, just southeast Guilford. That's where it is at the moment. This is headed towards you up in Burlington, and it could clip you in Elon as well. A couple little tiny showers popping up near Thomasville and Sophia. That's kind of something to keep an eye on as well. Farther off to the south, again, just some tiny little raindrops. That's about all we have locally. Back out to the foothills and the mountains. Don't want to forget about you. You have had the most action going on so far today, and that does continue. Some very heavy rain pushing into Surrey County. We have some showers popping up in Wilkes County, and still ongoing now, extending into Ashe County and parts of Watauga County, some downpours and thunderstorms. So a lot going on in those areas, but most of us still going to just kind of be watching and waiting until we get into this evening across the region. So to recap for you, we are in a weather impact alert mode from now through about midnight. Widespread thunderstorms may take a while to develop, but once they do, you'll be looking at them for possible flooding and possibly some wind gust action as well. Once we go into tomorrow, still partly cloudy, an isolated shower or storm is possible, but it's more dry than today will be. So in the meantime, just kind of keep your eye to the sky, use that News 2 app to help track these across the area. And once we get closer into the evening hours, we'll probably have a lot more action to show you popping up on radar. And of course, we'll have more updates throughout the day on WFMY+. In fact, we'll see you back here coming up at about 3 o'clock.